So, hi, y'all. Welcome. This is going to be fun. I'm Ethan, and this is Chris, and we're glad you're here. We're going to be talking about theater, and for the next hour, probably the next 40 minutes. If you've got questions, throw them into the chat box. Alex, who's standing by, thank you, Alex, will be grabbing those questions and throwing them onto the separate Google Doc that Chris and I both have behind our screens. But let's just do. I want to do something that I don't normally do, which is like I want to do my bio, but as my theater bio, just to give a little context about how excited I am to talk about it. And then I'm going to kick it over to you to do your bio. So my entrance into this conversation is like, I was a theater. I was, we joked, my best friend was the king of theater. I was the queen in drama. I would Troop 336, like did all the drama competitions, was going to go to school for English. And then in my Northwestern interview, had this moment with my interviewer where she's like, you totally need to apply for theater. It's Northwestern. So I switched, applied to theater, got in, studied performance studies, did all the acting stuff. It absorbed 100 student shows a year at Northwestern. It was amazing. Graduated and went to New York to ostensibly become an actor. Lived in Harlem for a year, and I was like, this is lonely, and I don't really have community here. Moved to LA to pursue screenwriting. Decided I wanted to go while I was driving a truck one month. I found the auditions for URDAs, which I'll talk more about later, and saw that I could audition for a bunch of graduate schools at once. Auditioned and went to graduate school for acting. So for 10 years, I was like, this is theater, this is my jam. So I went to school for theater for undergrad and grad school. And then took a left turn and became college essay guy and ended up here. So that's my story. All right, Chris, you go.
Me go? So I guess my story began probably quite young, and I think I began in the fourth grade. I played a proper noun in the quite famous play, The Missing Parts of Speech. It was a thriller, or at least a detective story of some sorts, and I played Sunday, the proper noun. Anyway, that's where it all began for me, and along the way, I made my way. I did a little summer program in New York City at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts right before I graduated high school. I went on to major in theater and dance at Trinity College in Connecticut, and that was a BA program. We'll talk about that stuff also coming up. And then I moved to New York after school, and I lasted a little longer than a year, that Ethan, at least, to, it's hard. It was challenging, and I was going on tons of auditions and waiting in line on the streets in February at 6:30 in the morning, waiting for Equity. The Actors Equity Association is the actors union. It's where they would hold auditions, and so you'd be sitting outside on the gross, disgusting sidewalk for 2 hours, freezing to death before they let you in, and then it was more waiting, and it was like 6 hours for one little 2-minute audition. But anyway, I did that for a long time, and then moved into higher education administration, and I have worked in higher ed exclusively with drama students for 25 years now, and it's been great running some theater programs. And then I ran a program for La Mama Theater, which is a big experimental theater here in the East Village of New York, and for Trinity College. That was a joint program where I went to school. And then I moved on to Tisch at the drama department at NYU. And I was the director of admissions there for about 12 years. And that was awesome. And I just loved it. And I just loved it. I just loved the work and the job and the students and the program. It was just all really a wonderful experience. And then I just left there shortly, now coming up on 2 years ago, to move into my consulting practice full time. And I founded about 7 years ago my little company called Nothing But Drama. And Ethan, I believe that name came out of a conversation between you and me, actually, if I recall. I think so. I want to say Phoenix. Anyway, so, or not Phoenix, Denver, maybe it was Denver. Anyway, wherever we were. But it's, so I help theater, film, and dramatic writing students who are navigating the college audition process. So I'm working more one-on-one with students now, and I really like it. And it's been a good road. I guess I should say I performed a lot. I think I skipped that. I went straight from the misery of auditioning to, actually, I had a very good long career here in New York City, performing in every little tiny nook and cranny that you could find. So that was actually a fun time working with a lot of different artists. So that's my long bio.
Love it. Well, but it's important context. So I'm going to flash up on my screen real quick some of the things that we're going to cover, y'all. BA or BFA, which is right for you. 5 different ways you can study theater in college. How to handle the demands of a BFA curriculum. What is an artistic review? Some folks have been asking already in the comments section about what is a pre-screen, how to crush your audition, and some common mistakes. We'll give a little timeline. We'll give the general one, and then we'll send a link with more. What's the difference between studying undergrad and grad? A couple folks in the chat box were asking, are we going to talk about grad school? Happy to cover that. What should you wear to an audition came up just before Chris and I were chatting, and Erda for grad school. And I want to show you that, just so y'all know, on this Google Doc we have, all of your questions are going to make their way into here, and we're going to get to as many as we can. But because you don't need to stare at a Google Doc, you can just stare at our beautiful faces. BA or BFA, what is the difference? What should students consider? Go.
Okay, so when you're looking at schools, all right, here we go. So I look at schools as kind of like that they're on a spectrum of schools, from a full conservatory on one end. That would be, a full, like a BFA program, full conservatory, like maybe Juilliard would be like that, for example, right? And then on the other end of the spectrum would be a liberal arts college or university, where maybe you'd have a BA in theater, perhaps, at one of those. Right, like Northwestern, exactly. So in the full conservatory, that's kind of all theater all the time, and you'll have kind of more kind of very little, or sometimes even no, outside of theater academics, right? So it's very focused on the art form, on your field, on the field of theater that you're taking. I will say here, you will always have academics in any of your theater programs. These are called theater studies usually, and these are courses in areas like theater history, dramatic theory, dramatic literature. You'll always have an academic component to whatever kind of theater program that you choose to attend. It's just that in the full conservatory, most of your coursework is going to be in that department, that major. On the other end, in the liberal arts college or university, academics is your focus, and you may major in theater, but your classes, your acting classes, singing classes, dance classes, will be classes just like your English and philosophy and history classes would be. So if you have 5 classes to choose from each semester, some will be those classes, and some will be other academic classes, but you don't have the sort of immersive quality or the intensity of a conservatory program that you would in the full conservatory. Then you've got some programs that are right in the middle, that are more balanced between artistic work and academic work. NYU, for example, is one of those. And I'm going to say, I know that I worked at NYU. Some of my references will certainly be NYU. It's just the easiest thing for me to talk about. I'm not necessarily saying, it's the best program ever. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm just using it as an example. But for example, NYU's weekly curriculum is 3 days of conservatory, 3 full conservatory days, where you're in your studio from 9 in the morning till 6 at night, roughly. And that's where you're taking all of your classes in acting technique and vocal technique and dance and movement and script analysis and scene study and improvisation and, all the delicious, yummy stuff you're coming to drama school for, right? And then on the other 2 days of the week, that's when you have your academics. So you have general education courses, the theater studies courses, and electives. So that one has a little bit more balance. And some of those programs that do have a little bit more balance often can have the freedom within the design of the curriculum to allow you to minor in another academic subject, or major, even do a second major in another academic subject. So, I'm not saying that one of these is better than the other. It's really what's right for you. It's what's right for the student. So you want to think about that, and I'll talk about that a little bit in the sort of next little bit more in detail about who each of these programs is for. But it's just important to know that as you're going through your college search and you're looking at these programs, maybe thinking of them along this spectrum might help you sort of categorize them a little bit. And as you start to learn more about them, you may realize, oh, I think actually this is a little bit more for me. And then that'll help you focus and refine your college list.
I want to jump in and say that for me, when I was 17, I was like really excited to do theater. I was a theater nerd, but I really wanted to learn other things. I wanted to study philosophy and do all kinds of other things. And so for me, a liberal arts school totally made sense because I had the freedom to do both of those. And what it ended up happening was that I ended up feeling a little bit like not everybody is as committed to theater as I am or want them to be, but they were really smart and had lots of varying interests. So for whom is it right? If you were all theater all the time and this is like, then maybe consider the BFA. But if you're more like, what, I want to kind of keep my options open, maybe that BA program is a better fit.
Absolutely. And maybe if I could just continue on to talk about the different ways you can study theater at the university level. And because it's exactly saying what you're saying. If we start with a BFA, if you choose to do a Bachelor of Fine Arts in theater, right? This is what was on that end of the spectrum. And it's exactly what Ethan just said. Like, this is for the students who are totally driven. They know this is what they want to do with their lives or with their career. They're ready for the rigors of a professional training program. I'll talk about that a little bit more in depth a little bit later too. You might already be studying with teachers, with voice teachers or acting teachers, or having dance classes or things outside because you're participating in your community theater in a certain way. You're working backstage, or you're observing a director. Whatever aspect of theater that you're interested in. That you understand that you're going to be in studio all day long, a few days a week, or even all 5 days of the week. That in a full conservatory, it's the demands are different, and the amount of time you're spending in your studio, learning your craft and learning this technique, the professional training, the artistic training is quite a lot. So that's a BFA. If you choose to do a BA, this is again what, as Ethan was pointing out, the difference. This may be for someone who maybe doesn't necessarily want to do this professionally, as you said, right? You want to be in theater, you want it to be part of your life, your undergraduate life, but you're not sure that this is solely where you want to go, or you do have other interests, like you said, philosophy. Philosophy was one of mine too. I took a lot of philosophy courses, a lot of English courses too. You may also say to yourself, okay, now that I'm learning about these BFA programs and this conservatory style training, I'm not sure that I'm ready for that. Like, that seems like intense and a lot for me. And I want to keep theater in my life, maybe even major in it, but I'm not sure that I want to go whole hog into it like that. You also may have an interest in the field of theater that's maybe not necessarily as tied to performance and production. You might be interested in teaching or becoming an historian or an archivist or something, so you may have another way. And so you're saying, like, so I don't know that I don't need to get full training in design or in singing and dance. But I want to know about them, so maybe a BA would be better for you. That's what I did. I also did a BA at Trinity College. And so, I actually was going to double major in theater and psychology when I got to school. I didn't go there for theater or anything really, but when I decided I was going to major in both. Mm-hmm. And by the end of sophomore year, when I had to declare my major, I said, okay, if I'm going to be realistic about this, I'm not going to go to grad school for psychology. That's just, I'm realizing now I really like psychology, really interested in it, but I don't see myself pursuing this further. Theater, I do. So I decided I dropped psychology and I just majored in theater. So one caveat about applying to BA programs I just want to mention is that, most of them have practice classes. There are training classes that you're going to be taking. You're going to be taking acting classes and voice classes and singing and dance and movement and all sorts of things like that, right? But most of them do not. Most BA programs don't require an artistic review, but some do. A small handful of them do. So just make sure, if you're applying to a school that's a BA in theater, just make sure they don't require. Fordham requires an artistic review. Muhlenberg does. Not require, but recommends it. It opens you up to scholarships and things. So just be sure, if you're applying to a BA program, that you pay attention to that. And the other little thing that I want to mention is that while most BA programs are housed in the theater department or in the College of Performing Arts or the School of, theater. Some BA programs might actually not be in those departments, but in like the College of Liberal Arts. It's like the New School, for example, is one of those where they have a BFA program, but the BA program is in the Liberal Arts College or the New School. So again, if you're looking for things, it's just something for if you can't find something, it may be somewhere else.
A couple of folks, I know that we're going to talk about this later, but will you just talk quickly about what artistic review is, sort of as a parenthetical?
Yeah, so artistic review, right? Thank you. That's as a parenthetical. That's like the primo definition we should be talking about, right? Like this is what it's like practically in the title of this thing. Yes, and when I say artistic review, it's just a little bit more of a broad term than just audition, because all of these reviews are not auditions. An audition is basically doing monologues or singing some songs or doing dance, right? Is an audition. But if you're applying as a director, as a designer, a set designer, a costume designer, sound designer, lighting designer, a stage manager, all of those require that you prepare a portfolio for review. So an artistic review is really an audition or portfolio review, right? It's reviewing all of your artistic materials. In some cases, the portfolio review or the audition also include a conversation. Some places call it an interview. Sometimes it's just a conversation. Sometimes they ask you a couple of questions. So all of that is what comprises the artistic review. So, and you would say, let's say you're doing a musical theater artistic review means you're going to do an acting evaluation, a singing evaluation, a dance evaluation. It's got many parts. So the artistic review is a little bit more of a encompassing term, I think, for all of this. It's like the admissions office does your academic review, and then the theater department does the artistic review. That's kind of how that works.
I know I'm jumping us ahead, but I'm seeing there are more questions on this webinar than I've ever seen on any webinar that I've ever hosted.
People love theater.
Yeah. Will you talk to us about what a pre-screen is?
Yes, sure. So some schools, and the pre-screens are getting more popular now. A pre-screen is really for the school. It's an opportunity for them to review material from all of their applicants in a digital format, and then allows them to go through all that material and decide, okay, so we had 1,500 people apply here, but we're going to invite a certain number of them back for an in-person artistic review, in a normal year. This year, pretty much everything's digital, and we'll get to that later, but so that they would invite only a smaller number. And then it helps the school manage the in-person auditions, because it's all the teachers that are doing this, right? So they're finding ways to manage it, so it helps them with their process. But what it means for you as a student is that it means earlier deadlines to submit things. So it's important as you're doing your research on your schools and you're looking at the artistic review guidelines that they present to you. If you see that they require a pre-screen, that usually means your deadlines to get stuff ready are earlier, because they need time to review all these pre-screens, right? So they're asking for them to come in September or October. So that's much earlier than the rest of the applications would be. So, and what that usually means is that you are uploading digital content. So that means you're doing, say, if you're an acting candidate, you're doing 2 monologue videos. And each school has their own thoughts about, what they want for it and how, is it 2 contemporary monologues, 1 contemporary, 1 classical? Are they 60 seconds each, 90 seconds each? So you have to be very careful and follow those directions. And then you upload those. Sometimes they ask you to answer a couple of questions. Maybe there's even a little short answer question for you to do. And you submit that, and that becomes your pre-screen material. For a musical theater, you would be uploading monologue videos and song videos, and in some cases a dance thing, if they need the dance that early, a dance thing, a video of dance as well. And they give you, sometimes they also, the pre-screen, they ask you to create what they call a wild card video, which is an opportunity for 60 seconds or 90 seconds for you to show something else about yourself, right? Do you play the flute? Do you juggle? Do you paint? So you've got 60 seconds to show us a little bit more about yourself. Sometimes they ask you to do a little 1 minute about me video where you just talk a little bit about yourself. So they watched you do as an artist, and now they want to just see you tell them a little something interesting about you. So they kind of get to know you a wee little bit in that 60-second video. So each school's requirements are different. So you have to look at those. They do mean an earlier point. Your timeline moves up then because you have to have those monologues ready and those song selections ready and the dance ready and all of that. Also, to make things easier, for the musical theater artistic reviews, many of you, if you've been already doing the research, you have found that the Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey, they just decided we're going to take the lead and we are going to create some common musical theater pre-screen guidelines in a similar to the Common App. They decided we're going to make everybody's lives so much easier by creating these guidelines so that the students who are applying to musical theater programs don't have to make 18 different videos for all the different schools that are like, well, we want a full body shot, or well, we only want it up to here, or we only want to see their eyes. Whatever it is that they want to do, that it just made everyone insane. And what's been great over the last few years is that more and more schools have adopted these guidelines. So when you go to look and say, what do I need to do for my pre-screen? They say, we follow the common musical theater pre-screen guidelines. And it's a wonderful thing, because then you just have to make one set of videos that you can submit to everybody. So it's been a nice thing that the Paper Mill Playhouse did. It was a really wonderful gift to our community.
So I apologize. Liz Kaufman in the comments said, can you please go back to 5 different ways you can study theater? That's my bad for nudging us along, but sorry, let's go back. What are the 5 different ways we can study theater?
Yeah, okay. So in the 5 different ways, I would say, as we were starting to talk about, right, there's the BFA in theater, which is kind of all in professional training. A BFA trains you to be able to work professionally, right? So there's a lot of emphasis and a lot of time spent on your developing your craft and the professional training and all that goes with it, and how you learning about the field and the industry and all of that. The BA in theater is a little bit more of an academic pursuit, one might say, but with many of the practice classes. I mean that meaning that the practice of acting or the practice of singing or theater, of design or directing, that you're still learning the mechanics of how to do it and the craft, just not to the depth that you might in a BFA program. I would say the third way is for you to say, okay, I want to do a BA in a liberal arts subject. I'm interested in theater, but I don't know if I want to pursue it as a full major, because I do have other academics that I'm interested in. So a key piece of advice for this is that you want to then find out, if you're saying, I think I love theater, but my interest in English literature is kind of winning. So you say, I want to apply and then I'll major in English when I get there. What you want to find out in your research is what opportunities there are for non-majors to do theater at that school, so that you're not getting there and going like, oh, what?
Which is going to be different for every school, right?
Different for every school, because you just want to make sure like that you're, if it's a small school and they have one theater department and they only let the theater majors be in the shows, then you might not be so happy at that school. But if there's is there a student drama club? Can you participate in department theater productions in whatever capacity? Again, performing, designing, working backstage, in the crew, working in the front of house, in the box office or house management, whatever aspect you want to be involved in the theater. Can you do that if you're not a member of the department? Are there productions? Are there shows? Are there concerts? That you can, or can you take any classes, right? In the theater department, just because you're like, can I take an acting class? Is there an opportunity like that? You can look for something, and here's another NYU reference. Tisch has a program called Open Arts, the Open Arts Curriculum, and it allows non-majors from all across NYU to take courses in all of the undergraduate arts departments at Tisch. Now, you're not taking classes with the majors of those departments, because they all had to do an artistic review to get in there. So you can't just like walk in and be like, hey, hi, I'm from the accounting department. But you can So your fellow classmates will be non-majors, but the teachers in those departments teach those classes. So it's another way, if there's a program like that at a school you're interested in, where you could take some classes even in playwriting, because you're like, I'm interested in playwriting. And so, if maybe there are these writing classes that as a non-major that you can take. So that's the third way. The fourth way, and I think I'm going down, I should have framed this in the beginning, but going from like level of intensity, right? We're kind of going down now. So the fourth way would be a study away semester. So let's say you're very happy, you're at a liberal arts college, you're majoring in your academic subject of choice, and you're having a great time. But then there's the thing, do I study abroad? Do I do a semester away? What do I do? And so then you say, okay, I could do a semester studying theater because I love it so much. What if I spent a whole semester focused on that? Mm-hmm. I did that when I was at Trinity. There was an undergraduate, there's a program at the National, it's called the National Theater Institute. It's at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center in Waterford, Connecticut, which is a long-standing institution that supports playwrights developing new works. They have these summer conferences. But during the school year, they train college kids. So I went there for one semester in my junior year, and it was so intense. It was full-on conservatory. We were in class from 9 in the morning till 10 at night, 7 days a week. So it was we didn't even go home for Thanksgiving. Like we had like a 4-day break in the middle, and that was it. And it was insane, and it was great and awesome. And we were delirious, but we were loving every minute of it because we were fully immersed in this art form that we all loved. But we're not in BFA programs. We were all in BA programs or non-BA programs. So it was really a wonderful way to get a taste of that conservatory in a semester. And that's not the only one. It just was my experience. And then I would add another one, which is a little different because but this is it. If you are at your school and you are happy doing what you're doing, but you happen to be at school in a major metropolitan area, that may perhaps have some amazing professional training conservatories in the area, like studios, meaning that they train professionals, like not college students per se, but they would be training adult learners. You could do your schooling here. Let's say you're in New York City. Let's say you're at Hunter College. You're having a great time. You're majoring whatever you're majoring in. But you're like, I kind of want to do some theater, but the theater here is not super strong. And I kind of want to do like some intense actor training, just not at school. You could sign up for a conservatory outside of school if it fits in your schedule. And I'll tell you, you would get good quality artistic training. You would get a certificate of completion if that's what they gave out. And it would cost you way less money than paying to learn it and pay for the credit. You know what I mean? When you're paying to get a degree, everything's a lot more expensive. Going for a certificate program at a professional training studio is going to be way more affordable. So those are maybe now we're up to about 1 million different ways that you could study. But I'm just trying to give you. It's about you measuring your, I think, level of interest, your level, what you think about your future, and the level of intensity you want when you bring theater into your life. And these are all different kind of ways for you to do that.
Can I give 1,000,001 and 1,000,002 ways?
Yes.
So 1,000,001 way is, the opportunities to study in different places don't have to take up like all of your nights. For example, one of the things I did after I graduated actually was I went to a 1-week intensive in Boulder, Colorado that was studying physical theater, the Lecoq workshop. This was in Naropa University. Beautiful intensive, learned a ton about physicality. And I was like, whoa, I almost went to Del Arte, just based on the what I was learning there. So you can do these kind of mini intensives that happen on a weekend or happen over the course of a week, right? And it doesn't have to be your whole summer or like all your nights. The other thing that we chatted about briefly is like getting an MFA. If you want to, do kind of like the BA path. And then once you graduate, I went to UC Irvine. Real quick, how do you audition for MFA programs? I did this thing that I mentioned called IRDAs, which is basically your opportunity to audition for, 30 or so graduate schools all at once in one room. It's pretty stressful. You get 4 minutes, you get 2 contrasting monologues. And then based on how that audition goes, you get called up into their rooms and you do like kind of follow-up conversations and sometimes get offers just based on, to these whole graduate school programs. And in many cases, they'll pay for you to go there. So that's another way to do it. If you decide, you know what, you're still really into this theater thing, but your parents are like, maybe study some other things with practical application. And then you decide that you still really love it. You can go to, now I'll say the good side of getting an MFA in theater was like people were super all in committed, like that thing that I was, I think, hungering for. But the other side of it is that, it can be a lot of, it costs money. You still have to take out loans in order to be able to pay for rent and those kinds of things. So, I came out with like 2 or 3 times as much debt from grad school as I did with undergrad. So just something to think about.
And also just to mention, when you say the URDAs, that's the University and Regional Theater Association, right? And those are the auditions that they hold, right?
Which allows you, again, to audition for a bunch of schools at once. It's a really efficient way of doing it, but it's pretty high stakes,
Yes.
Can we talk about auditions? We said we advertised how to crush your audition and what are some common mistakes that students make. A lot of questions are coming in about monologues and stuff. What are some audition tips?
Some audition tips. Okay, I would say, for you if I have tips. I'm going to have like a million tips. I don't know what. Tips, tons of tips. Tips. Here we go. Tips. So tips for auditioning. I mean, there's a lot because there are a lot of things that you need to think about, right? So
what should I wear? Okay, what should I wear to my audition, Chris?
What should I wear? You should definitely come in either like some sort of animal costume, like one of the ones that you can with the big heads. So you can do you do like a little fun little thing beforehand as this like costume character, and then you take the head off and you're like, ha ha ha, just kidding. That usually works. I think most of those people get right in.
Right, and then here's the piece from Othello, and
right, and then you go straight, because then you're like, I'm a serious actor, even though I'm dressed like this. I would keep the body part on while you do Othello. I mean, I just feel like that would really make an impression, if nothing else. So, but what I would say, what you wear, you want to wear clothing that you feel confident in. Mm-hmm. You want to wear clothing that and what?
Your power shirt.
Your power shirt. You want to wear clothing that you feel confident in and comfortable in. Clothing that you can move in, because this is theater. You don't just stand there. You move. Shoes are very important. You could wear. You can wear. If like for. You can wear shoes. You can wear no shoes. People come in barefoot and do things. I feel in most cases. Or at least I want to believe but I don't know if it's this way all across the board. But I feel like, we're really there to learn about you as an artist and what you do and what you're presenting. We're not super concerned with what you're wearing. Like, we're not evaluating your outfit. But I would say, if you're going to treat this like something that's important to you, you're going to dress and look decent. That's what my mom used to say, right? She's like, how do we have to do? We have to dress up, just look decent. Okay, so, you want to look decent. But you want to look like you take this seriously, that it's important to you. There's no need to dress up. You don't have to wear a tie. You don't have to wear a jacket. You could wear a shirt like Ethan and I are wearing. You could wear a polo shirt if you're boys or girls. It really doesn't matter what you're wearing, but you want to wear like something. I would suggest for anyone who wants to wear heels, that you don't wear like super insane heels, because you're not going to be able to move in them. I've seen it happen. I'm like, while they're waiting for the audition, I'm like, you can barely walk to the door. How are you going to really perform? So character shoes are good.
So comfort, look decent, something you can move in if you're going to be asked to move.
Yeah.
So it's about material. When students are trying, oftentimes we're talking about contrasting pieces. What are some material?
So material, one of the big things that I always say to students is find material that jazzes you in some way, that gets you so excited. When you're reading plays or you're reading monologues and you're going through a million monologues and you're trying to find the right one for you, when you land on a character, you're like, ooh, I can't wait to get my hands on this person. They're so interesting. That's the one that you should do. If you're so excited about it, that passion and that enthusiasm is going to read. It's going to shine through in all of these auditions you're going to have to do for all of these schools, right? And if you have joy doing the monologue, we will have joy watching you do the monologue. It'll be so clear that you are enjoying yourself, that we will have a great time. And think about this. when you're going through this whole audition process, think about the fact that you are going into these rooms to share something that you love with people who love it too. It's a win-win. Like, this should be a really fun experience. You're going to be nervous as anything. Don't get me wrong. But it should be fun because you're like, I can't wait to get into that room and do these monologues. I love doing them. I love these characters and I want to share them with these people, and they're going to get it. They're going to get me because they're theater people too. So that's an important thing. I would also say about the material that you find not only material that you love, but material that you connect with or relate to in some way. Because if you have a connection to that material, whether it's the character, whether it's the situation, or the relationship, if this is a scene between a character and their mother, and you're just like, oh my God, I've had this conversation with my mother 8,000,000 times, I totally get it. Okay, that's something that you can connect with. Or the characters going through something inside themselves, in their heads or in their hearts, and it's something that you feel like, I felt that way too. So I feel like I could get in touch with certain things inside me that will help bring this character's story to life. So I think that is very important. And all of that will also serve you when you have to talk with the evaluator afterwards. Sometimes they'll say, why did you choose this monologue? Or where did that come from? Or like, tell me a little bit more about this character. And you will have tons to say. Mm-hmm. Because it's not just like, oh, my acting teacher gave me this monologue and I guess it's okay. Yeah. If you connect, it's really important. And one other thing I'll say, you mentioned contrasting. It's very important to find contrasting pieces. You'll see in all of the guidelines, almost all of the guidelines, that they ask for contrasting pieces. That doesn't necessarily mean comedic and dramatic. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily that clear cut. Sometimes they might say that, but that's one thing. But if they say two contrasting monologues, what they mean is show us two different sides of yourself or aspects of yourself as an artist. So and it's an important point to remember, and I belabor it a little bit because I feel sometimes young artists can get comfortable in a certain type of performing because they're good at it, right? And they get good response when they do it. So they're like, oh, great, I'll do two monologues that like this because there'll be two killer monologues. And then they go into the audition room and they do the monologues, and we're on the other side and we're watching. We're like, oh, those were two killer monologues. But the second one didn't show me anything new about this person. So it becomes a missed opportunity to show them something else. Mm-hmm. And I think that you want to find material that really shows, I'm not a one-trick pony. I can do more than this. And if comedy's not your thing, you can find two contrasting dramatic monologues. Maybe one is like super heavy and super like emotional and deep and rough. And then the other one might be lighter. It might not be funny. It just is a lighter subject. And, it's not this deep emotional thing where you're having this angsty moment with your parent. And I don't know, I'm sorry, parents. I don't mean that all of them are going to be angsty with the parents. Let's just say it's angsty with your best friend. You're having this super fight, and it's really tearing you apart. But then this one, it's a sweet moment you're having with your parent, and you are, and it just shows a different side of you as an actor and you as a person, and you're relating to a different person. That's another piece of the contrast. You can also look for what are the situations different, and are the receivers different. Am I speaking, is the relationship with the receiver, if this is my best friend and this is my parent, well, those are two very different relationships. So that gives me a chance to do something different.
I'll give a quick example of that. For grad school, I did one piece from Richard III, which was, now is the winter of our discontent, which is addressed to the audience. And then I did a piece by Danny Hawk that was in Spanish. That was a guy who was trying to sell claves on the street. I did the whole piece in Spanish, didn't translate any of it, as a way of being like, here's me, classical, evil character. And then here's me, a dude just trying to make a buck on the street, sort of a charismatic dude. And again, I didn't translate. So contrasting in a few different ways. We said we'd talk about common mistakes. So I want to give you a second to think about this because I'm sure you have a ton of these in your mind. One of the common mistakes I see is students choosing pieces that are so common. Coming in with To Be or Not to Be, you better crush To Be or Not to Be, or do something different with that we haven't seen before. And probably we've seen it before. So I want to encourage students to come and find content that, yes, you might love it, but the more uncommon, if the viewer has only seen the monologue 2 or 3 times, that's going to maybe give you a better chance than, again, if they've seen it 100 times before. It really needs to be one of the best versions of it that they've seen, or do something a little bit different with it. Mm-hmm. Or another, and be something different. Is it a cross-gender one? Are you doing a piece that normally, are you coming in as a guy and you're doing Gertrude's monologue from Hamlet, where she's speaking at Ophelia's death, and you're kind of like, okay, there's something I haven't. The students thinking in a different way this way. So what are some of the other mistakes that you see?
Well, I want to just say on what you just said about gender doesn't really matter, right? This is your acting. So, don't feel like you are only can be looking at books that are, monologues from published plays, all have to be from published plays, but you're looking at monologues for men, or
not necessarily monologue books, right? Because students are sometimes fans of these monologue books because they're like, there's so many here, but it's really hard sometimes to find the backstory on those characters. Y'all, just to underscore what Chris is saying, when you're doing it from a play that's been published, there's oftentimes so much more information about that character within that play that you can mine and bring to your audition. So anyway, sorry, I'll show that.
And there are plenty of books out there that are monologues from plays, which can be a very good place to start for you. But you have to make sure that, because there are other books that the people have written the monologues just for that book. So they're like Ethan said, there's no context. So yes, but gender should not matter. If you find the character interesting, the character is interesting. So that's one thing to be said. I would say you're right. On the idea of overuse. On one hand, we used to say, like when talking about this, we could have, like at NYU, I could have put online like 4 monologues and said, you choose one of those 4, 2 of those 4 to do. And then we would have seen 3,000 people doing the same monologue, which would have made us lose our minds, I know. But the thing is everybody is going to do it differently, right? And in a way, it's almost like a standard, like the song standards from the 30s and the 40s, they used to call standards. So like everyone knows the song, Someone Who'll Watch Over Me. But it sounds different when Ella Fitzgerald sings it from when Sarah Vaughan sings it, from when Lena Horne sings it, and from when Etta James sings it. So it would be that, where we would be able to see the variations between the different performers, the different, as they do the similar material. So sometimes if you do end up doing one that a lot of other people have done, what Ethan said is exactly right. You want to be able to make it very much your own, and try to have a really interesting take on that. Yeah.
What are some? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say, you see your other mistakes. Go ahead.
I mean, other mistakes, I would say, well, not following directions is I got to say an important one, because depending on the people in the admissions, the departments, whoever's handling the artistic reviews, or the evaluator that's in the room, if you do something or don't do something you're supposed to do, sometimes that can not look good for you, just like it is in the application side with the admissions office, because it shows that you're not really following directions. And they're trying to get a sense from you of whether you are a good fit for their department. Are you someone they want to have in their class? So you want to make a good impression. So there are things like on material, when they say pick characters that are within your age range, do that. Mm-hmm. You can play oldies later. And, coming from someone who played a lot of old men and old women in college and beyond, that seemed to be the thing that I did, all through my 20s and 30s, just played a lot of old people, which was great. I love doing character work. But, what the age range, what characters that are around your age help us see is you. It helps us see you shining through the material, because it's a character that's closer to your age, so we can kind of get a little bit of a better sense of you if you're trying to, and also it's about believability in a way, because if you're talking about that you're on your 3rd marriage and your 2 kids and your grandkid are coming to visit, we'd be like, I can't really separate that. Yeah, and memorize. I mean, this is very basic.
Oh, I know what you're about to say. I was going to say it too.
Memorize your monologue.
Is it cold? Yeah.
You have
this thing. You're going to be in your head completely, and oh my God, it's so painful. And somebody goes up on their lines.
Well, and sometimes, when someone goes up on your lines, I'm going to tell you this. This is an important thing to remember. If you forget a line, or you flub the beginning, or you skip something. First of all, if you skip something in the middle, it's very likely that your evaluator is not even going to notice. But as long as you stay in it, if you mess something up, just keep going. That's what's important. If you start it off and it is tanking from the beginning because you're like your head is totally off, you are very welcome to say, I'm sorry, can I start again? And then you can begin again. And then I would say 9 times or even 10 times out of 10, in the auditions that I saw, the student was fine the second time. It was just nerves. And we all know that. We all know that you're in the middle of this very heightened nerve situation. And we know that things go wrong. So students would come out sometimes a little bit teary. And I'd say, what's the matter? Oh, like I messed up one of the lines in my monologue. And I'm like, it's okay. We're looking way beyond that. We're not really, in a way, testing you on your memorization skills. We are there to see you act and see what you do as an actor, as an artist, and what are you making sense of, and what are you understanding, and what do you still need to work on? Like, we're assessing you as a performer. So if you flub a line or you make a mistake, it's okay, and just not to beat yourself up over that. Yeah.
So I want to shift here to questions. I want to direct you, Chris, real quick to the Google Doc, and you'll see that we have maybe 100 questions. So here's what I would love for you to do. Will you there's this other thing that we wanted to touch on briefly, which is like undergrad versus grad, which maybe I can just talk about it for like 1 minute while you scan these questions. And I want you to pick maybe like 5 to 8 of these that you bold them for yourself. And I'll turn it over to you in just a minute to kind of run through as many of these questions you want while I talk about grad versus undergrad. Is that okay?
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay, cool. So we're multitasking here. So in undergrad at Northwestern, and by the way, not all undergrads are created the same. So even if you study undergrad at Northwestern, there are tons of theater programs. So student-driven theater opportunities. So one thing you want to ask when you're looking at these different schools is how many student-created theater opportunities are there? Because Northwestern had, I want to say like 12 student theater groups. They might have more now. UC Irvine, which is where I went for grad school, had 1 or 2, just a couple. So there were relatively fewer opportunities. If you didn't get into a main stage, which is to say one of the ones that, was part of the season, then you had fewer opportunities. So not all undergrad BA programs are created alike. And also, one thing you'll want to look at is do grads get cast in the same shows as undergrads? Because a lot of the UC Irvine shows cast undergrads almost exclusively. And so whatever was left is where the undergrads got cast, which wasn't a great situation, right? In Northwestern, for example, on the other hand, it was like open to all undergrads because there wasn't, when I was there at least, a grad acting program. So one big difference is that in grad school, you're going to get that full-on BFA, intensive experience. You're doing voice work for 2 or 3 hours on a particular day. You're probably, it's more of that sort of like 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. sort of days. And oftentimes the programs are pretty small. Like at UC Irvine, it was like 8 students. Other schools will have as many as like 24, but you're with that cohort, intensively, basically every day, especially if you're having meals together all the time. So you get really close with those people. Whereas an undergrad, depending on what kind of program you do, it might be less intensive. See above with what Chris was saying. Graduate school is going to be really great if you want to go teach theater. Somebody asked that in the Q&A. If you want to teach, go to graduate school for theater because I think it can prepare you really well. And there are all sorts of ways to do that. But is that enough time, Chris? Did you get a few questions?
Yeah, I got a few written down now.
I'm just going to let you roll for the next 10 minutes. Go.
Okay, so I'm just pulled a few different ones out of here, and these are great. Thank you oh my gosh, there are a lot of questions. Thank you so much for chiming in. This has actually been it's great to read through all that, and I look forward to actually reading through them afterwards a little bit more closely.
You have to set up some other event where you're able to answer more of these questions. I don't know if it's like a workshop or a webinar or something.
Totally.
There's got to be a part 2. Okay.
There has to be. There's too much. There's too much. Okay. So one of the things is there was a question about tech and design, and I just want to make sure that because a lot of focus, of course, in theater programs in this idea of applying to theater school, there's a lot of focus on the performers, because they are a lot of performers, and it's often the way that most students kind of discover theater is performing in it, right? You're in school and you play a missing parts of the speech, and you play a proper noun, and I didn't ask to do that, I just was given that. So that's the kind of thing that's how a lot of students discover theater. But not everybody stays as a performer, right? Some people discover that they're like, I like working backstage better, or I would like to be the one out front, kind of with the bigger picture and helping to shape this piece of theater. Or I love the idea of helping with creating the world of this theater, so that, you know, what is everyone wearing? How does the place look? How is it lit? And what are we hearing? And all of this. So there's a lot of, you know, theater is a collaborative art form, and it's extremely important to remember that. We are all of these the performers, the stage managers, the directors, the designers, and the stage hands, and everybody. When you go to see a Broadway show, there might be one person, let's say, singing a solo on stage, and there are so many more people back there. It doesn't feel like it when you're sitting out in the house and you're just watching this one person sing this amazing song, that there are like a ton of people just off stage in the wings alone that are sitting there being, you know, running the show and calling the cues, telling the lights when to go and with sound when to go, and this set piece when to come in, and then the people who are making those set pieces going in and out. So and then there's the people who are helping the people change their clothes, the dressers and the wardrobe people who are taking care of the costumes. The world of theater is so vast, and it is so exciting to me always to also learn from and hear from and work with students who are interested in going into production, design, directing, and all these other aspects of theater. So for you, as I mentioned before in the artistic review, for those students, it's more of a portfolio review, right? So you're going to be presenting your work as a director, as a stage manager, as a designer. And these vary. A director's portfolio will be mainly a director's notebook, which is all your prep work toward a performance, towards a production, actually. Which is going from when you're, what is your overall concept of this production? What is your vision for this production? When you've read the play over and over and over, what themes have started to emerge for you? What are your thoughts about the different characters? How about the relationships between those different characters? What are your thoughts about the different design elements, the set, the lighting, the costumes, and sound? How do you think you're going to stage this? Is it going to be in a proscenium theater with all of us, the actors up here and the audience out there? Is it going to be in the round? Are we going to follow your cast all around campus? Like, how's this going to go? How might you rehearse it? Are you someone who's going to start big picture and drill down to the super intimate scenes? Or you're starting with the intimate scenes because in your mind, those intimate scenes are the heart of this play, and I want to make sure those are really strong, and then I'll stitch it all together. So all of that is what they want to know from the director's notebook. In a design portfolio, they want to see you as a designer, and they're going to ask you to, sometimes in a lot of these cases, they'll ask you, I'm screaming. I have a mic right here. I'm totally screaming.
I was screaming too.
it's I don't know why we do that. But so with the design portfolio, you're saying, okay, sometimes you're given assignments for the artistic review where they're saying, pick a play that you've never directed, that you've never designed, that you've never staged managed, and go through the motions as if you were going to do that. So if you're a lighting designer, you're going to pick a play that you love and have never worked on, and then start designing the lights. And so then we can see in your portfolio, again, from the beginning, what is your vision? How are you going to go about lighting this? Show us some sketches. Maybe there's also in your portfolio examples of work that you already have done as a designer. So you're showing us pictures of costumes that you actually designed, and we're looking through, or it's on your laptop, and we're seeing that, or you're bringing sound bites on your laptop, playing for us because you created a soundscape for this student play that you did last fall. Cool, awesome. We want to see all of that stuff. Some students, they even have created websites for their design work, their production work, so that they can give us the link, and then we can look at all of that stuff. So, as stage managers, we ask you to prepare usually a prompt book. So again, you're going to stage manage. We want you to go through and outline the script in the way you would, talk about how you're going to work with the cast and work with the director, because the stage manager is the person who's like, they're like command central in a way, because they're the hub of communication between the director, the designers, the performers, the stage hands, the union, they're like everybody central. So they're like super vital to this experience too. So when you're looking for these programs in production and design, there are so many out there. Some give BFAs in the specific area of design. Some will give one that's more in design and production, and you're able to then specialize in your interest within that BFA. So look for those programs. It's really is amazing, and most of them are smaller. They're smaller programs than, say, the performing programs might be sometimes, because there are fewer people going in, but it's amazing to see how many students and what the students bring. I mean, we've had students roll in a costume, dress form with a costume on it for their artistic review. You know what I mean? So it's an important thing. So I just wanted to make sure that the students in production and design and directing knew that, you're very much a part of this. And it's really it's important. And all of the stuff that we said goes for you too. It just, with the, monologue stuff aside. Another thing I want to say, someone said, how do I demonstrate my interest, my passion for theater if I'm applying to a BA program that doesn't require an artistic review? Mm-hmm. It's a great question, right? So that can creep into things like potentially, well, I don't know, I'm not going to say a word about anything. I'm not going to say anything about an essay because I'm sitting with the college essay guy.
I think it's pretty important. Go ahead.
No, but meaning that, that's one place that your interest, your passion can kind of be infused in the presentation you're giving to the admissions office. There are also sometimes short answer questions that might lend themselves for you to tip your hand that you actually really love theater. They'll see it when you provide your extracurriculars and your or a resume, if you have to put that in. They'll see like, wow, this person does a lot in the arts. I think also many schools accept an arts supplement, which means you put together stuff. You put together videos. If you're a performer, you put together, a photography portfolio. If you're a photographer, you put a video of a piece you choreographed. If you're a choreographer or a dancer, so they give you an opportunity to share your arts if they accept an arts supplement. Ethan, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, you're doing great. I'm on your plate. Well, no, you're doing great. And what I would say is, yes, get it into your supplemental essays, and but you don't need to put it in like 6 supplemental essays. If you've got if you're applying to Yale and you've got it like theater as your community, great. You don't need to also connect to intellectual idea and also, here's a short answer connected. So get it into 1 short answer, maybe 2, but it doesn't need to be in 6.
Right, because the same people are reading all your essays. So right, message received kind of thing. You're like, got it. We got it in the first essay, and then use the others to tell you more about yourself. Someone asked a question about, I'm sorry I didn't write everybody's names down. I was just scanning so quickly, saying that they have a stutter. And how do they go when they're going to do the auditions? And they said sometimes it's difficult for them to get some of their lines out. And I want to say, first of all, that's not a problem. And the people that you're auditioning for are theater people. They're theater teachers. They work with students that are your age that love theater, and they know you're there because you love theater. So you do it on your time, and you do your monologue. You can, I guess, make the decision, and probably better than I as you go through life. Is it something that you want to share? I guess is the question. Do you want to share it up front? Will that make you more comfortable? The key is would want you to be able to go through the artistic review in as confident and comfortable a place as you can be. So if you feel more confident saying, or will be more comfortable if you say up front, listen, I just want to let you know that I do stutter, and so it may come out when I'm doing my monologue. They'll say, great, wonderful, thank you for letting me know. It will never be viewed as anything negative. I want also to throw out there a resource. There is a company or an organization called SAY, S-A-Y. It used to be called Our Time, and it is a theater. It's in New York City. It's a theater. It's a group that does theater with students who stutter. And so it's like an after-school program, and students can stay in it, I think, until they're 21 or 22. And they work with professional actors. And I was very fortunate to be able to go to, it was actually a benefit, and they were performing the students with these professional Broadway actors that were there too. And that was when the company was called Our Time. And what I learned and understood over the course of that hour just watching is that, what I understood is that, we as a non-stuttering person, we just have to relax into the time of the person who's stuttering, right? And to say, we're not here to finish your sentence. We're not here to, you're not looking for a word. You're communicating with me, and I just need to let you do that on your time. And they recently changed it to, they call it Say, so it's something to look up. But anyway, I think was an important thing to pull out there, because I feel like anyone who's going in to an audition and if you feel insecure about something about yourself, whatever that is, if it's something physical, if it's something mental, if it's something emotional, if it's just that you're like, I can't help keep talking about horses because I love horses so much, like whatever it is that you feel like, this is a theater, you're auditioning for theater. Theater loves all sorts of people and welcomes all sorts of people into their community. So it's a very welcoming field. And you should feel that what you are bringing, whatever that is that you feel maybe makes you different, or you feel is actually a something that's very valuable in this field, is that if you're bringing something unique, you're bringing something new, you're bringing a different perspective on life and on the world from what you feel is something that might be perceived as different. It's a wonderful thing, and you will be very welcomed. So.
I have so many things that I want to talk to you about. Like, I want to talk to you about the specifics of applying to NYU. I want to talk to you about resumes. We didn't really get to those. I want to talk, there's so much. So here's what we have to do, y'all. We're going to have to wrap in like 2 minutes. We're over time, and I want to give Chris the chance to, kind of wrap and see if there are any other questions that you want to, hit on. But I just want to say that I'm so excited to talk to you, and I'm so excited to try and rope you into some other event that either you lead and you just host it and do it, or that we do together.
I would love that. I would love that.
Yeah. Everybody who's listening, there are some, oh great. So 261 of you who are left. I'm going to try and basically, as soon as we get off here, we'll Zoom, Chris, we'll do a quick Zoom check-in. Okay. And we're going to try and set up something for the next few weeks. We'd love to do a part 2. And I'm going to try and actually get Chris to maybe do a part 3, so that there's some stuff that would just, because there's so much to cover here. So yeah, people are saying yes, please. So awesome. This is definitely being recorded. You'll get a recording of this. Chris, I want to let you pick one more question from the pile here. If there's something else, or if there's it doesn't need to be like a final wrap up. It's just sort of like, is there one more that you'd want to tackle while we're on this one?
The couple that I pulled were kind of very technically things, but I mean,
grab one?
What?
Can I grab one?
You can grab one, yes, whatever you like to do. You can grab one, or I can,
Let's talk about test scores, because a bunch of folks asked about, do they matter, and do they matter this year?
I will say what has happened with test scores, one thing that's an important thing to remember is that if you are studying theater at a college level, at a university, in most cases, or I never want to say all cases, but in most cases, I would say many, that you need the academic requirements for the university are for everybody who's going there. Like, they're not going to be less for a student who's going into the arts. Like, I've had that question from parents sometimes over the years at NYU, and I'm saying, no, they're taking classes with everybody else at NYU. All their gen eds are in the College of Liberal Arts. Like, everyone needs to be at the same standard. So there's no lower standard of admission for the theater kids. I think the test score, speaking of NYU specifically, a couple of years ago, I guess it was probably like 3, because I was still there. The admissions office decided that any applicants who had to do an artistic review, so that meant all Tisch students and then Steinhardt students who were applying to the music department, that they could apply test optional, because we're doing this second review, this artistic review. So they said the testing can be an optional submission. I think in this year, as many of you are seeing, a lot of schools have removed the test requirement, because also a lot of the testing dates were canceled, and the testing sites, we couldn't do it with COVID. We couldn't do it. So that becomes, it's not something that they're looking at quite as much. I think that I've been reading is, it's schools are in different places. Some schools are like, we might keep it that way. Other schools are like, no, I think we're going to go back to the old play. Others are like, we're going to do a 3-year trial period. So who knows where it's going to be, a few years from now. But I think the testing, I think that's might be the end of what I have to say about testing. Is there? Did I even answer any question in there? Like,
so it's like, I mean, my thought is, what I'm getting from what you're saying is like, because students may not have been able to test, that like, it's not one of those things you can control too much. So like, if you tested and you got a great score, great, show it. If you didn't so much and you leave it off, colleges will care less, especially if they're test optional. So, that's a question for your counselor. I'll just say to whoever who's asking that, it's like, talk to your counselor and go, okay, based on this, this school, is this score going to be like, definitely help me, maybe help me, trying to be in the middle, neutral? Is it going to maybe hurt me, or is it definitely going to hurt me? And if you're kind of in range, then you can leave it off, usually pretty comfortably, unless it's one of those very few schools like University of Florida or Florida State that are still requiring test scores. I think Georgetown is kind of still maybe, but you kind of have to email them to find out if they're. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, like, what the admissions office told us when they went test optionals, they said, tell students, so you don't have to submit testing. If you do, however, submit the testing, then we have to consider it as part of your application package. So like Ethan was saying, if it's super great and you're like, I can't not submit this incredibly high SAT score, that's fine. It's not going to hurt you, and it'll show that you're like, yeah, I'm a serious, whatever the testing actually says, because we know many serious and excellent students don't test well, so whatever. But you can certainly do that. But if it is on the lower end, it can damage your application. And I had that experience where a student that I guess thought was great, and then all of it, they told me, they're like, well, no, they submitted their test score, and so we had to do it, and it kind of tanked their application or brought it to a place where they couldn't be accepted. So it is an important thing to think about.
Mm-hmm. I was on a different webinar today, and somebody said there were two gems from that. One was, it's hard for colleges to unsee a test score. So it's kind of like evidence in court. It's like, strike that from the record, but it's like, well, but I kind of know that it was whatever it was. And then the second thing that I heard that might be like more, confidence building for y'all is somebody from the University of San Francisco, an admissions counselor, was quoted as saying, if you're applying to a test optional school without a test score, it is a complete application. So you're okay. And then if you submit a test score, it is additional information. So I love that definition. I hope that gives you all some confidence for not submitting and knowing that you will be having still, a complete application if the school is test optional. Okay. And you can find a big list of those if you Google test optional schools or FAIR test, FAIR test.org. I could do this all day with you, and I want to Zoom with you. So I'm going to email you right now a Zoom link so that we can talk about when we're going to do a part 2.
Awesome. This has been so much fun. I'm so glad that we did it. And thank you all so much for being here. That was amazing.
Thank you all. I appreciate y'all. And it wouldn't be a theater webinar if we didn't use the word amazing. So thank you. You're amazing. And I'll talk to you really soon. And hopefully y'all will come visit us and see us again real soon. All right. Talk soon.
Bye, everybody.